digital gremlins and all. But in any case, we're up in all the places that mostly matter. I mean, if you want to leave your comments, yeah, don't worry, that'll be up shortly. Should be anyway, looking at the tubes. But otherwise, yeah, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. So however you are tuning in those other ways, we're definitely up and at 'em and back at it again, as we always are every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., to delve into the issues affecting us here in the borderland. And there's a lot to get to today. I mean, some international stuff that is just ever so slightly impacting to us here, including oil prices and what that might mean at the pump. Maybe too early to tell, but let's just say not looking great. Also, more updates on some of those immigration, like frankly, a lot of updates coming on that today, including some updates we'll be talking about with our news partners over at KFox 14. Again, we'll have an interview from when we had in studio Stephania Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners there, again at KFox 14, delving into both some of her in-depth reporting, including talking about her time at Commissioner's Court earlier this week for those debates, discussions, and final action, or lack thereof, I should say, coming from that UMC bond, what the future of it is, clearing up some of those questions that I frankly had and expressed on air, as well as some of the ones that y'all had, as we also have Ida Beza Gardner, hello, and Sean Gardner, yo to you as well, chiming in over on the social media. Again, that's why it's useful to have that up, and glad we're up there. Thanks for proving the point. Also, I want to say that's Steve Ivey, but the name shows up weird for some reason. Hello from the farm, just because that's the only person who says that, even though for some reason our end the same is just showing up as Facebook user. Happens occasionally. There's a reason we're all on the platforms that we are, in order to make sure, even if something's going wonky in one place, we're still up at it. So hello to you as well, assuming that we're correct about what it is. So again, details on what exactly comes next, and why we might be going through another public outreach process, but maybe not another petition when it comes to the future of that level of public spending. So we'll be delving into that. I know been a little bit of a debate going on with some of those issues, but again, we will be checking in with our news partners there at KFox 14 about some of the other big stories, including coming up public fund expenditures in a different way as well, and even just some of the other big stories around the area, including, again, a lot of immigration issues. Again, if that's Steve, I don't think it's on your end. I think it's probably somewhere in between ours, but who knows? They don't always tell us what they're doing, which is why we do what we do when they don't tell us what they do. That's confusing, good, because it was meant to be, and that's about how the experience is. In any case, we'll be taking phone calls a little bit later in the show, as we usually do, and just delving into those issues that affect us right here in the borderland. So some of those interesting, let's kind of start broad and narrow our focus down to the locality tier today. Of course, some of the announcements coming out about OPEC. Yeah, never like a good thing whenever that organization comes up here. Of course, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, also known as a cartel, but also maybe we should do a show one day on the history program about how the Texas Railroad Commission literally influenced the design of OPEC. But I digress. Point is that they are looking to cut production in order to shore up prices, which is investor speak for it's going to cost us more. So however much we've been seeing oil prices and therefore gas prices maybe kind of not really flattened, though there is an interesting story again from our news partners there at KFox 14 today about why gas prices are different in different parts of town. Here's a hint. It's a mix of both supply, demand, as well as what it actually takes to get where it is. And so that's part of their Carpe Diem segment with Erica Castillo that they'll be delving into. So you can share your 2 cents as part of that. But again, yeah, I think if you were thinking about having your own underground gas reservoir, don't just dig a hole and pour gas into it. Please don't do that. But if you're looking to be more ready for this, expect prices probably going to go up, if not already starting to go. Yeah, that's just not going to be good and not going to be a fun time, and probably won't help a lot of those other issues that we often touch on, such as things like, inflation, increasing prices, stuff costing more. I mean, it all comes down to the money in a lot of ways, doesn't it? So in a way, some of those other public monies that we're talking about and expenditures, a tweet right now, and in fact, not too long before the show, from Jonathan Mejia, again, with our news partners over there at KFox 14, getting a tour and part of the media tour through the Migrant Welcome Center from the county of El Paso. Going to be looking into what that is and has, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is part of the facility out near the airport? Because if it's the one that's going out near the El Paso County Coliseum, they sure built that out fast, looking at some of the initial posters there. And looks like Steve Ivey confirming that, yes, that is him. I'm glad you like the show. And even though if it's weird technical issues with names and such, no worries. We'll keep it going. And you can always, of course, tune in. If you're ever having trouble with logging in and commenting like that, can't exactly make the comments work if you don't have an account, but you can always see the show over on YouTube just as without even logging in case you've had some reports of bad behavior. Yeah, I know it happens to the best of us. But so, yeah, talking about that Migrant Welcome Center. Again, that coming up a little bit later in their broadcast day with our news partners, but it'll be interesting circumstance of what exactly is going on in there, what some of that numbers are, because we've been talking about on order of millions of dollars. I frankly have lost track of how much being spent, what, where, and exactly how. But some of the previous numbers, of course, that we have been talking about and we'll delve further into, and we're talking with Estefania here in just a bit, is that, yeah, there's a whole lot of money being spent, particularly from local coffers, and the reimbursement numbers are fuzzy at best. But there's a whole lot more that we'll get into there. At least one other that I want to mention, that really kind of sick case that came up previously last week, if I'm not mistaken, about there being a person arrested and accused of kidnapping and holding for ransom a baby of a border crosser, which is just woof. Yeah. Apparently more details coming out about that. Again, the name of the person being held there, missing it here for a second, Roark, R-O-A-K. Geez, I'm not having the name correctly shown there. Anyway, yeah, port of it, Jenna Lee Roark, R-O-A-R-K, missed the R there, was arrested for, again, holding after telling a migrant woman she was going to keep her son and hold him for ransom, which is just a really super, super sick circumstance. I mean, it's just not, it's unconscionable. There's like no justification for this, and specifically targeted this person and took the child and offering the person a ride to the bus station. So that's what happens. At least I'm not by any means wanting to victim blame here. There is no justification for what this person did. Again, Roark in this case. But this is the kind of thing that is more possible whenever there is a lack of formulated response. The fact that we have continually seen this kind of haphazard, trying to be formulated to give it the benefit of the doubt, but otherwise just really kind of having to roll with the punches kind of response we've had. And again, that may still kind of feels like putting it generously. And again, this did not happen locally, but it was, it of course was arrested locally. Point is that with our continuing coverage of this and looking at what it takes to actually deal with this is the kind of thing that can crop up, and why having an actual concentrated and dealing with this is more important, because these are kind of second order effects that can continue to happen. Eric McNabb commenting, saying fear-mongering of spending when you self said you don't know where the balance is. Again, you'd really like to seem that phrase, fear-mongering, as if talking about spending of money is an inherently evil thing. I mean, I guess, kind of agree with you on that point. Not necessarily evil, but problematic at best, and definitely making it so that it's accountable to the public. The whole $50,000 toilet seat or those kind of stories from the past, whether or not that still happens anymore, there's definitely been more than a little bit of, and maybe not totally corruption, but lack of concern for how money is spent in a lot of public contracts. So keeping an eye on that, also known as kind of watchdogging for those that are actually digging into the data, would not by any means call that fear mongering. But if you're saying that, you're saying something I don't like, therefore it's fear mongering, I mean, go right ahead on that. I'm not going to follow you down on that line of reasoning. RJ saying gas prices going up is Putin, the Saudis, gas stations, transitory inflation, and Trump's fault. Biden's zero-fault presidency. It is Halloween after all. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it, and Putin certainly isn't helping and is probably in more coordination with OPEC. I mean, they are having some serious cross application of the same values of wanting to make more money, and Russia being as cash strapped, or at least dollar strapped as it is, and trying to find another way around it, and others internationally kind of hovering around the edges of wanting to depose the dollar as the reserve company. I mean, yeah, it's not a great situation. Sean Gardner kind of correcting me in a way, saying dumping gas in a hole in your yard will stop weed growth, and then the El Paso government can't fine for tall weeds. Okay, credit where it's due. I'm still probably not going to do that myself, and just try not to light yourself on fire, I guess, would be my best advice. But I will say that in the, again, 300 some odd medians that the city of El Paso has said that they are in charge of and will be working through, it has been marching through parts of the drive I take on the west side anyway, kind of marching up Sunland Park, and she will just turn after that, Shadow Mountain. So it's been coming, and that's decent in its own right. But of course, those public funds when it comes to roadways also a question lately. So we'll see how that works out in the long run. In any case, that's taking us through the first break of the hour right now. Coming out of this break, getting into the interviews again with our news partners there at KFOX 14, talking about some of those big investigative stories, including that UMC bond. Yes, that ever so slightly contentious one that has had petitions, a successful petition, I should say. And what comes next? We delve into that and all of the details with it. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone calls a little bit later. Keep those comments going and checking in with all of that. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Not too many problems on your El Paso freeways right now. Looks pretty good. Gateway North at Sean Haggerty, an accident reported. A stalled truck is blocking the westbound to eastbound turnaround lanes on Trans Mountain at the 54 Gateway North. On Loop 375 eastbound at the 601 Spur, a stalled vehicle blocking the left shoulder, and an accident reported George Dieter southbound at Rojas Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by News Nation. Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 5 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnationnow.com/join us.
Your engine may be trying to tell you something.
Hello? Yeah, under the hood. Mind opening up?
I need a favor. I've been driving you around for years, and I haven't asked for much. Some gas, a little oil, new tires once in a while. But look, I'm feeling a little run down and sluggish. I just don't have that same get up and go. And I'm afraid I might fail my emissions test. I warned you. Didn't you see my check engine light? So here's where you come in. Head to your favorite auto parts store and pick up a bottle of CRC, guaranteed to pass emission system cleaner. Psst, it's in a box. Just open up the bottle and glug, glug, glug right down the old gas tank. CRC, guaranteed to pass, uses real detergent additives to clean my whole system. I promise I'll feel so much better. And so will you, because guaranteed to pass actually does what it says. Or CRC will double your money back. Hey, have I ever steered you wrong? CRC, guaranteed to pass emission system cleaner. Available at your favorite auto parts store.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know how important it is to be confident in all of life's close-up moments.
And bad breath can rob you of your confidence.
Yeah, it can. Whenever I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities or friends or just chilling at home, I got to make sure I have the confidence that comes with Smart Mouth mouthwash.
Smart Mouth is clinically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath for 24 hours with just 2 rinses a day.
Get to your favorite retailer right now for that kind of better together confidence.
Find Smart Mouth at your favorite retailer or at smartmouth.com/radio.
If you're in a room with 4 other people, chances are one of you has already been an identity theft victim. 1 in 5. Watching your accounts and credit isn't enough. It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity. LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself. If you become a victim, LifeLock will work to fix it. Nobody can prevent all identity theft, but everyone can save up to 25% on their first year with promo code BECK at LifeLock.com. Promo code BECK, save 25% off your first year.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
With an open channel.
I guess just try to keep channels open.
We welcome open-minded individuals.
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
With open arms.
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
For open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world. Wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one, but also find us over on other Facebook pages, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv. Of course, keeping the conversation going on the big news of the day and other developments. But of course, joining us in studio here right now, as we do most Wednesdays, we are joined by Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely happy to continue talking with you about some of the big stories going on, because one of the ones that's been overarching and kind of simmering in a lot of ways, if only because there's been a lot of waiting involved with it, but still a lot of actions, rallies, and other things, and petitions, of course, the entire concept of the El Paso County Hospital Districts, also known as, but technically separate, UMC, probably more commonly known, and the certificate of obligation bond that has been put forth, that roughly $345 million that has been, again, a bit of a waiting game in a couple different ways, because, of course, initially there was the announcement and then the delay before the issuance. Then there was the petition that was issued that had been about $17,000 spent to hire people to process it. And now the results of that came out, and that's what you spent most of the early part of this week delving into, right?
Yeah, so at the Commissioner's Court meeting on Monday, we learned that the county clerk's office was able to verify the signatures on that petition. They needed a minimum of 25,000. They accepted a little more than 32,000. And that means that they basically met the qualifications of 5% of those signatures had to be from registered voters. They had to have, a date or the actual wet signature, as they call it, from the person who signed it, and all of their information, their address, their name, and all that. And so they in accepting that petition, what that meant was that commissioners could no longer issue certificates of obligation for UMC. If UMC wanted certificates of obligation, it would have to go to a bond on the ballot, in which case it would become a general bond, which is what they would be asking voters for.
Pretty commonly known as a bond election at that point.
Right.
So, we're using the phrase bond in a lot of ways here, but this goes from being something that would be not required to be voter approved to something that would essentially now have to be voter approved. But there's a step that I think I missed in describing part of this here, is that I guess maybe just some of the conversations we had, including those submitting some of these petitions, which I have found one of the examples in my stack of papers here in front of me from one of the organizations doing that. Of course, the one that was accepted was from the Libre Initiative. And I was under the misconception, it looks like, that this would therefore automatically go onto the ballot, but that's part of the more particular details of being not the case, though for this to move forward, there is a ballot in the future, or would have to be.
Right. So this does not automatically call for an election. What this means is that UMC has now the option of placing this on a ballot, and it's up to UMC to pick which one, basically. We know it can't be the November one because the deadline to place anything on the November ballot has passed. But there are elections that are coming up in which UMC could decide, we are going to go ahead and move forward with this for that election. We do not know what UMC plans to do. The spokesperson told us that the board is going to go back to the drawing board and see what they come up with, see if they stick with their current package, if they maybe, come back with a different project or proposal. And so we're waiting to hear back from UMC. I think that's really where we're at right now, is that UMC is going to decide how they're going to move forward. Because right now commissioners can't do anything. This is this is automatically going to go on a ballot if UMC chooses to move forward with this.
So again, the parts that we're talking about here, and to get real technical for a minute, because it kind of deserves it at this point, is that all the petitions that were being circulated on this, and again, the one that was accepted as organized by the Libre Initiative, all cited Texas Local Government Code 271.049 subsection C. So to do a little bit further reading on that, and pardon the legalese, but it's as is written, citing that directly from texas.public.law. If before the date tentatively set for the authorization of the issuance of the certificates, or if before the authorization, the municipal secretary or clerk, if the issuer is a municipality, or the county clerk, if the issuer is a county, receives a petition signed by at least 5% of the qualified voters of the issuer protesting the issuance of certificates, the issuer may not authorize the issuance of the certificates unless the issuance is approved at an election ordered, held, and conducted in the manner provided for bond elections under Chapter 1251 Bond Elections Government Code. So that's a lot of very specific legal language, which is to say that they cannot move forward with this, like you said, unless it goes onto a ballot. But again, the part I guess I was confused about is that this was a trigger to do that. So that's not the case. So the ball is still kind of back in UMC's court, but it's not a be able to reconfigure this, if anything, for this purpose. I mean, by my reading of that, they still want to move forward with that. They are going to have to, therefore, place it on a ballot, which, given some of the conversations that you have had, that we've had on this program, along with, of course, UMC, the County Hospital District, about their considerations for it, sounds like they will have to kind of go back to the drawing board and at least some of the numbers that I recall is that even if this were to go on, say, the May ballot, one of the next ones coming up, that the price would go up about $30 million was some of the rough estimations, but there are even further discussions going on even within that, right?
Right. So even the spokesperson after this was announced at Commissioner's Court, the UMC spokesperson told me that, yes, people can expect the cost of this proposal to go up simply because now the timeline has shifted. And they're keeping an eye on interest rates and whatnot. And so that's all going to affect the overall price tag of this proposal. And so people can expect to pay more. I think, in speaking with the Libre Initiative, who was also there at the meeting, this was about wanting to have a say in this proposal and in the whole process. And so whether El Pasoans decide to vote in favor of this or against it if it goes on the ballot, they wanted that choice. They wanted to have that option of having a voice in this. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It'll be interesting to see if UMC does decide to move forward with this and how El Pasoans feel about it ultimately if it does go on the ballot.
Again, joining us right now in studio is Estefania Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. To find anything about this story or previous reports or upcoming ones that we will be talking about as well, you can find them, of course, all those reports at kfoxtv.com, and then just click under the KFOX 14 Investigates tab. And so one of the potentials here, again, is that this could go on, say, the May ballots. I mean, there's even some less likely, I would call it, going on to like runoff ballots. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that, given that there's going to be a whole lot more, again, back-end work they're going to need to do on UMC's part. But there was at least one conversation you were mentioning to me that you had about the potential for it being even pushed even further into next year, given some other political considerations going on.
Yeah, so I spoke with Commissioner David Stout after this as well. He is recommending that if UMC decides to put this on the ballot, that they do so November of 2023. And he cited the legislative session as being why it would be better to hold off until November of next year.
Which, I mean, there might be some other concerns there, that being, as much as we'll be looking at the outcome of this election as a midterm, that will then be an off year election in between both midterms and presidential elections. So we'll see. I have my own level of concerns, but again, a lot of that going on, and a lot of this going to be TBD, basically, until we find out more of what UMC is going to come back with this on here. But of course, you've had other reports out since we've last talked, including the one that we teased last week about a little bit more in depth with the El Paso city manager, Tommy Gonzalez, about tax incentives. And of course, a lot of conversation about this and about how the tax burden works out in El Paso. And so what were some of the things that were some of the key points you had working for that story?
Right. So, I mean, at a time of rising property values, we had a lot of El Pasoans questioning why the city was using incentives for hotel development. We saw this with the Texas Tower when that was announced that they would be getting incentives. Same with the Crest building, which all were announced, I think, early, if not this year, last year. It
Sounds
was
about right.
recently in the last couple of months that we learned about those incentives. And so I asked the city manager about that, and he says that the downtown we have today would not have been possible without offering incentives. And the way it works is that they use state incentives and local, so, city incentives as well. But the state incentives are much greater than what the city puts in. And so he gives an example of, instead of the city of El Paso, giving, 40%, we're probably only giving 10% compared to the 30% that the state is putting in on these tax incentives. And basically, he said there has to be a private public partnership in order to make all of these projects happen. There needs to be some sort of, motivation or incentive, if you will, for investors to want to invest downtown. And he says that that's how the Marriott Courtyard got done, the Plaza Hotel renovation, the Paso del Norte, which used to be the Camino Real. So he explains how in the long run, this ends up being something that helps the city grow and can help people in lowering people's taxes, simply because of the way that the money is distributed and where the money comes from, which he goes into pretty good detail in the story if you all are interested in looking into that. And so it was just very insightful because we've had these questions whenever the city announces that, oh, so this building's going to be renovated through tax incentives. And it's just like, okay, but what does that mean? And where exactly is that money coming from? And how does that work? And so really what it is, it's just taking advantage of something the state offers that not every city in Texas does. He says that he started doing this when he was the city manager in Irving. And when he came to El Paso, he implemented that. And so now according to the city manager, there are about 38 cities in Texas that take advantage of these state incentives that are basically to help renovate cities and get them going and get people or outside money to invest into these, local economies.
I mean, there's a couple of challenges that come to mind here that kind of go into these arguments. I mean, the idea of building up the tax base by bringing more, businesses, industries, et cetera, particularly for the downtown area. It has another level of challenge because we do have a lot of historic buildings downtown. El Paso's downtown largely got, maybe not how it's currently is, particularly since we got the, big new skyscraper that went downtown that had a lot of relocation going into it. But in general, some of the, buildings that you're mentioning there, the Plaza, Texas Tower, some of the other, iconic buildings of downtown came up, kind of an early part of last century, like 20s, 30s, before the 50s. And so in general, without any, all of the things being equal, demolishing those and building something new can end up being cheaper. So if we want to see preservation going on there has to be something to sweeten the pot. Just because, I mean, the calculations of, per square foot costs and also efficiencies, because it's not, you can't just patch up the walls, so to speak. You also then have to retrofit, put in, HVAC in some cases, change the way things work. So there are extra costs, and that has been, I know, on the county side, a lot of focus going on for years now. And there was one factor I became aware of better part of a decade ago, where all of El Paso's downtown, vacant building stock had been acquired. And of course, there have been notable demolitions that we have seen that there's been a lot of discussion about. And pretty much most of what we've seen with this has been all about adaptive reuse and not just demolition. And so I think that goes a little bit more into about essentially why these incentives are being offered the way that they are, because in previous times when there weren't kind of things like that happened, one notable example comes to mind, the Mirror building that was on the corner of San Jacinto Plaza. That is now a lot of stuff was supposed to happen with it, but kind of didn't. And now it's kind of like a cafe area, but otherwise is not a building anymore.
Right. And so these incentives, it's the state agrees to rebate 10 years of hotel motel tax. And so a lot of that money comes from when people stay in hotels, they're taxed a hotel motel tax. And so that's where that money comes from. And so it's interesting the way that money's moved around in order to make this happen. It's also interesting that I didn't realize that not every city takes advantage of this. And only recently, has El Paso started to do that as of the past at least 8 years, according to the city manager. So, I mean, that's something that he says has really helped the downtown area grow. And I mean, he thinks it's something that helps attract big, retailers, big businesses, because they see that, there's all of these, it's a bustling downtown. And that's, I think, what always attracts tourists or people is having a really nice downtown. And so we have his, explanation of why he thinks that that's something that El Paso needs to take advantage of. Those incentives are something that, although they sound like a lot to the average, taxpayer, he provides his explanation for it. And so I found it to be very insightful. And like I mentioned, you can find that article on our website, kfoxtv.com.
Of course, we got that one. And then coming up tonight on KFOX 14 at News at 9, you have one of your latest investigations going into, well, let's just call it crime related.
Yeah. So we've done several stories on this, and this has also been the case nationwide. Catalytic converter thefts. We've reported about how, there's a rise in more of these thefts. And so I took it a step further, and I actually filed open records to see all of the police reports that have been filed related to catalytic converter thefts. And I went ahead and checked what areas of town are seeing the most thefts, at what time this is happening, and if there's any particular parking lots or establishments or homes where this is happening. And so that is coming up tonight at 9.
And just to say, as we were talking about, there are a couple of trends that you will be able to point to from the data you've gathered.
Yes. I think it's pretty, there are 4 areas of town that had the most thefts, and they all had a few things in common. So I'll go ahead and point that out as well in the story.
Absolutely. So again, that'll be airing again tonight, KFOX 14 News at 9, and of course also posted online at kfoxtv.com. This, and again, the previous reports that we've been talking about as well on the KFOX 14 Investigates tab. Again, guest right now is Stephanie Cipher, an investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. Got to take that next break now. So coming out of this break, continue talking with Stephanie about some of the other big stories going on in our region of the day, as well as, well, a whole lot more. And so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update. The El Paso Public Health Department is out with the warning after 2 men died of the West Nile virus. The men were in their 60s and 70s. One lived on the east side, the other in the lower valley, and both had underlying health conditions. The health department reminds you to take precautions to avoid mosquitoes because the diseases they spread can be deadly. The CDC says, according to early data, about 3 million Americans have gotten a flu shot so far this year. And for the first time, they are recommending people 65 and older receive a high-dose flu vaccine or an adjuvanted flu vaccine, which is added to the vaccine to create a stronger immune response. Health experts also suggest pair your flu vaccine with your COVID-19 booster for maximum protection against both respiratory illnesses this winter. I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
From the CBS 4 Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We are in for a beautiful Wednesday here in the Borderland. We are still seeing some of the aftermath of the rain we saw overnight. We are going to continue to see that 50% chance for rain sticking around here in El Paso and Las Cruces. Now, we're also looking at some much cooler temperatures today because of all of that cloud coverage that we're going to be seeing. We are expecting a high of 75 degrees in El Paso, 73 in Las Cruces. Make sure you're packing those umbrellas today.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small businesses create bold signs to make big impressions. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 12/31. Visit staples.com/thisisyoursign for details. This is your sign to print big at Staples.
You wash your hands and brush your teeth, but what about your nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage pulls saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, dirt, and germs, and it's why nose cleaning is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons: sinusitis, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they also find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Nearly 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying things like, best product I've ever used, and amazing, I love my Navage. That's because Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less. But the biggest payoff is improved health. Here's the key point. Navage is good personal hygiene, and it's going to help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, Target, and online. Navage, Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Fall into a hiring spree with Indeed. Their end-to-end hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Sponsor a job and instantly receive a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit. This report is sponsored by Indeed.com.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything.
I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor.
If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONDCP.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, all of which is to say that you can get at us a lot of ways. Add your 2 cents through the comments. Keep those going. We'll pop them up on screen and open those phone lines a little bit later as we do in this segment. But in the meantime, of course, joined here still in studio by Stephanie Stifert, investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. Thanks for sticking around with us today.
Of course. Thank you.
Absolutely, because we were talking about, of course, a lot of your in-depth and investigative reporting, but there have been a lot of big stories circulating and percolating through the area recently, including a couple of shootings related to immigration and border security and the issues we've been dealing with in our region. And so some of that still developing as we're recording this, as a matter of fact, including, of course, the shooting that happened at the Border Patrol station, basically right next to the East Side Spaghetti Bowl. I know there's not a great way to put that, but out in those regions of East El Paso, that a little bit more detail has been coming out so far.
Right. So that's the Border Patrol station near Joe Battle and Rojas.
Mm-hmm.
The Mexican consulate, we're learning, they're telling us that the man who was shot was a migrant. He was a Mexican citizen. And this man, the migrant, was being processed when it was found that he had criminal charges. So what we know is that man has died. And this is something that El Paso Police and the FBI are still investigating.
Yeah, and again, so on the web story as well, some of the statements from the Consul General of Mexico in El Paso. So more details to be coming out about this, and even on top of that, including the FBI and El Paso Police, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection's Office of Professional Responsibility is also reviewing it. So probably more details coming out about this, but those are some of the latest ones at the moment. But in another case, of course, I mean, the fact that we've had 2 in the last couple of weeks of shootings, again, involving these issues, this one involving officials, it'll look like to some extent agents or official government response, and another 2, 2 individuals, I should say, that were released from El Paso County Jail earlier this week, actually, in conjunction with, or in the situation involving a different shooting happening in Hudspeth County.
Right. So this was the case of 2, I believe they were twins, 60-year-old brothers who had been found to have shot at 2 migrants. And this was in the Sierra Blanca area, and that's in Hudspeth County.
Right.
And so one of them, I believe, was one of the migrants who was shot, I believe, was a woman. And we have had a lot of developments in this particular story with regards to um, these brothers and just whether they bonded out, whether they've been arrested again. A lot has been developing with that. It appears here just from our latest story that they were rearrested. The men were identified both as 60, and they did have bond hearings this morning. So we are expecting to have a lot more developments on this today and maybe even throughout the rest of the week.
Possibly there as well. Another one of the developments, of course, being that the Mexican consulate, again, commenting on this case, saying that both of the people that were shot, again, the man that was killed and a woman shot in the stomach, were Mexican citizens there as well. So that they're saying a law firm will represent the two in a possible case of human rights violation further from the consulate. So, again, a lot more potential legal charges, and both are charged with manslaughter so far in this case. So again, this is another one developing, but notable, of course, that this has been a couple of incidents within, the last couple of weeks here.
Yes. And that particular incident, the two people who were shot were part of a larger group that were out in the desert area there in Sierra Blanca, and they had stopped to get water. So there are a lot of details to that. You mentioned, this is the second one that we're seeing. Different circumstances, it appears, but nonetheless, it's an issue of two of migrants being shot. So those are definitely stories that are still developing, and we're keeping a close eye on for you all.
Of course, this also comes on the heels of and in the continuation of what has been the local city response to releases happening in the city of those once they've been processed through federal custody. And one of the updates, of course, that's been going on lately is about, and some of our commenters have been talking about what's going on at the El Paso International Airport. And in response to that situation, at least in part here, some of the developments we're talking about this week is that the city of El Paso actually going to be setting up cots for those awaiting flights overnight out of the area related to this.
Right. We had been hearing about this for the past couple of weeks, that there were migrants at the airport. And so when we asked the city about it, they are providing cots for migrants who are taking very early flights. Say, for instance, they booked a 5 a.m. flight. They're there at maybe 3 a.m. And so they are providing cots. The spokesperson had also mentioned that they're also providing food for them, just to try and I guess make the process easier for migrants who are waiting, since they don't have anywhere else to go. They've designated a space in the Placita area of the airport, where they say that they set up the cots at night and then they pick them up in the morning. So, I mean, chances are that if you go throughout the day, you might not see that. It's typically in the morning, they're seeing between 60 to 100 migrants. It varies by day. But we're still asking the city questions about this process and how it's working, about reimbursements and how that's working.
Because, there's some big questions, particularly since last week it came out that FEMA at least initially said only about 30% of the busing or general transportation out of town would be reimbursed, which would still, particularly given some of the recent contracts that have been getting approved, I think about $10 million worth on the part of the city specifically, both with a $4 million extension and then a $6 million contingency through essentially next year, that if that formula were to be applied, that would still, again, leave local coffers on the hook for millions of dollars. So not insignificant by any means. And of course, this continues to evolve, this whole migration response, and how the city specifically has been, and other local entities such as the county, have been dealing with it. A couple other stories I wanted to mention here. And again, if you're just joining us, guest in studio right now with us, this is Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners there at KFOX 14. A couple other stories going on for the Land of Enchantment, including, kind of like straddling the area. We've talked previously about different issues going on with, like, say, Santa Teresa and Sunland Park, but another one has come up involving a potential about 200 and change subdivision that would essentially straddle a couple of jurisdictions, but also have some concerns about exactly how all of that will work, and some opposition and argument over the actual development itself.
Right. There's been a lot of, I think, confusion with this story, just because there's so many sides to it. There's the people who are for it, the people who are against it, and then there's also the conversations that are had at the Sunland Park City Council, and then the conversations that are had at El Paso City Council on this. And so since it involves both cities, I think that's where it's gotten a bit, I guess, complicated. But we've heard a lot from from people who live in that area, I think the issue is the one way in, one way out on that. And I think I'm trying to find the road just to be
Girl Scout Lane and Frontera will be
right.
where it's
Frontera,
close
yeah.
to. Yeah.
And it's whether there's development or not. And I think there's a concern of emergency vehicles being able to get in and out of that area, and a lot of concerns that have been brought up, and then a lot of I guess explanations as to why they can't go forward with it without, maybe permissions from zoning and planning, or permissions from the city of El Paso, or from the city of Sunland Park. So last we heard, I think there was supposed to be communication between the mayor of Sunland Park and the representative for that area in El Paso, which is Peter Schwartzbein. And the mayor of El Paso had said that he was also going to have conversations with the mayor of Sunland Park about this. So I think it's one of those stories that's still developing. What we had covered yesterday was the fact that it was going to be addressed in a meeting at Sunland Park City Council. So definitely something that you can expect more updates on for sure.
And I mean, yeah, that the jurisdictional concerns alone are complicated, as you just kind of elaborated on there. One other thing from the land of enchantment I wanted to make sure we get to today that's been simmering about the potential for maybe reorganization of some of the ordinances involving dispensaries in Las Cruces specifically, that has had some interest, both, of course, from dispensaries and related groups and some community groups, but then officials, including now the mayor of Las Cruces, saying that being able to change that might be complicated at best and not likely. What he's really saying, since we're looking to change the 300-foot distance either between dispensaries themselves or residential areas, and along with the consideration in the back of my mind, the phrase that lives there is on Las Cruces that, I mean, sure, it's got NMSU and industries and important things like that, but that it's largely a bedroom community, largely residential areas. So part of the challenge that has been talked about by dispensaries owners and other citizens about the fact that there's not a whole lot of, within even commercial zones, space to actually have that 300-foot buffer function and not just kind of exit out entirely.
Right. So this is something that dispensaries would want to appeal, because they want to be able to grow. Say if they have one business and they want to expand, there really aren't a lot of options when it comes to where they can grow if there's already a dispensary there, or if it's near a residential area. So the mayor thinks that it would be very difficult to appeal this decision, where, city council has decided to keep that mandated 300-foot distance requirement. But it's something that some dispensary owners were very vocal about yesterday during the meeting. And I would be interesting to see how it plays out, just simply because the mayor himself said that in 30 years in government, he's never seen something like this being appealed. But it's something that seems to have a lot of supporters, if you will. I mean, those business owners who are trying to push to be able to expand or grow. So we'll see what happens with this story. Another one that is also we're expecting there to be more developments on.
I mean, a lot to be expected here today in a lot of different ways. And again, if people want to get a hold of you, of course, your investigative reports that people can find at kfox14kfoxtv.com, and then click under the KFOX 14 Investigates tab. If they want to get a hold of you with any other tips or other suggestions for future such reports here, what's the best way for them to do so?
You can email me at eyseyffert@kfoxtv.com.
Again, that's Stephanie S. Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners there. Thanks for checking in with us about a bunch of the important stories, and of course, your reporting in depth in our region, as we do most Wednesdays.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely here. And so we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. Of course, we'll put up that information for Stephanie on our social media as well. But in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and open up those phone lines as we do during this point during the program. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
On the 10 westbound at the Piedra Street exit, road debris is blocking the two left lanes. Stay to the right. Gateway West at Lee Trevino, a crash reported. Expect delays if you're on the 10 eastbound in the Upper Valley between Vincent and Trans Mountain. 7-minute delays. George Dieter northbound before Montwood, an injury accident. And a crash on East Lake northeast of the 10 Gateway. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small businesses create bold signs to make big impressions. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 12/31. Visit staples.com/this is your sign for details. This is your sign to print big at Staples.
Have you thought about getting dental implants? Has someone told you that implants cost $3, $4, $5, $6,000 a tooth? Here's something much better to think about. Affordable dental implants from 1995implants.com. The El Paso Dental Office, where beautiful, top-quality, long-lasting dental implants are as low as $1,995 per tooth. That price includes the implant, abutment, and crown, which many other places charge extra for. At 1995implants.com, we also offer a free consultation, free standard x-rays, and convenient financing. 1995implants.com. You're going to love your new smile, and your friends and family will be telling you how great you look. Best of all, your dental implants are very affordable if you come to 1995implants.com. For more information, see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Education doesn't just take place in the classroom. There are many ways for children of all ages to learn about sustainability and environmental education at home. Visit iHeartRadio.com/Earth for a list of resources, activity guides, and toolkits that are educational and fun for the whole family. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
A construction site is a noisy place where things can be misinterpreted. We need to redo the drywall. It can sound a lot like
rewire the hall?
They're firing Paul?
Wait, what did I do?
Or even
install a waterfall. Whose dumb idea was this?
Be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, how about that drywall?
Talk El Paso, bringing you the biggest stories from the borderland and beyond, 4 to 6 p.m. every weekday, brought to you in part by Sergio Lewis Body Shop. Call the pros at 915-593-0191. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday at 4, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 5 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnationnow.com/join us.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
All right, we are super out of time here for this hour. Interview went a little bit long, but I found it to be useful. A lot of comments coming in. We're putting some of those up on screen here. But again, if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-K. After this break and the top of the hour news here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690. News on the
On the 10 westbound at the Piedra Street exit, road debris is blocking the two left lanes. Stay to the right. Gateway West at Lee Trevino, a crash reported. Expect delays if you're on the 10 eastbound in the Upper Valley between Vincent and Trans Mountain. 7-minute delays. George Dieter northbound before Montwood, an injury accident. And a crash on East Lake northeast of the 10 Gateway. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden says politics have not affected him working with Florida's Republican governor to address the recovery from Hurricane Ian. Taking questions after remarks in Fort Myers, he said the two have been working hand in glove. The president commended Ron DeSantis on a job well done handling the storm's aftermath. Biden said his administration is working day and night to help.
We have one job, and that's to make sure the people of Florida get everything that they need to thoroughly recover.
A federal appeals court will expedite the Justice Department's appeal over a special master reviewing documents seized from former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. The DOJ previously had a small win when the Atlanta court agreed to partially block a judge's order to stop federal investigators from reviewing 100 of the records taken in August. The one-page order calls for the case to wrap up by November 17th. U.S. intelligence officials believe Ukrainians authorized the attack that killed the daughter of a significant Russian nationalist. The New York Times reports that American intelligence agencies weren't involved in the attack against Daria Dungina, but believe parts of the Ukrainian government okayed the car bomb attack in August. A top Senate Democrat is outlining priorities for the $80 billion in IRS funding provided through the Inflation Reduction Act.
Oregon lawmaker Ron Wyden emphasized in a letter to the Treasury Secretary and IRS Commissioner that the funds would not be used to increase the audit rate relative to historic levels for those making less than $400,000. He detailed expectations for the 10-year investment that include boosting customer service, investing in tech, and increasing audits of the wealthy. I'm Lisa Taylor.
At the closing bell, the Dow Jones lost 42 points to 3273. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The suspect charged in the killing of a Marist student's father in a Poughkeepsie hotel during Parents' Weekend at the college is reportedly a fugitive. Scott Pringle reports.
Roy Johnson Jr. allegedly skipped a court appearance on gun and drug-related charges in Georgia. He's also a suspect in an August gang-related murder case in the Poughkeepsie area. Poughkeepsie officials tell NBC that the police department was unaware of the arrest warrant out of Georgia until after Johnson allegedly shot and killed Long Island native Paul Cutts.
A recorded interview with the father of accused killer George Wagner IV is being played in court. In the interview played by an Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation agent today, George's father, Billy, described his family as a bunch of hillbillies. He added it wasn't them who's responsible for the 2016 Pike County murders of 8 people over an alleged child custody dispute. Billy also said the murders had to be carried out by someone with SEAL Team 6 type training. He added that at least one member of the Roden family had a drug problem. A spokesperson for Brad Pitt says the latest allegations by ex-wife Angelina Jolie are completely untrue. Michael Kastner has more.
Well, the two actors are fighting publicly over a French winery they owned together. Last year, Jolie sold her half and Pitt filed suit, claiming they had an agreement that neither would sell without the other's consent. On Tuesday, Jolie filed a countersuit and has revived claims from 2016 of physical abuse by Pitt against her and her children on board a private plane. Pitt's representative is refuting the allegations and says Jolie's story continues to evolve each time she tells it.
Americans view the U.S. Postal Service and NASA most favorably when it comes to government agencies and departments. That's the finding of a new Gallup poll. 60% have an excellent or good view of the Postal Service, while 56% hold NASA in high esteem. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
The can't miss music event of the year is coming to the CW.
The 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Featuring once-in-a-lifetime performances from the biggest superstars in all of music.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's up, Vegas? Make some noise! I don't know if y'all ready for this one.
All hosted by Ryan Seacrest from T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Don't miss our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
This Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. on the CW.
This report is sponsored by News Nation. Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 5 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnation.now.com/join us.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know how important it is to be confident in all of life's close-up moments.
And bad breath can rob you of your confidence.
Yeah, it can. Whenever I'm rubbing elbows with celebrities or friends or just chilling at home, I got to make sure I have the confidence that comes with Smart Mouth mouthwash.
Smart Mouth is clinically proven to eliminate and prevent bad breath for 24 hours with just 2 rinses a day.
Get to your favorite retailer right now for that kind of better together confidence.
Find Smart Mouth at your favorite retailer or at smartmouth.com/radio.
Tired of the news about how everything is costing more?
Everything is stubbornly high.
Us too. That's why we made the iHeartRadio app absolutely free. When you download the free iHeartRadio app, you have radio stations you love at your fingertips whenever you want, wherever you want, along with millions of podcasts from the news you crave to the true crime series you can't resist. Playlists to fit any mood or activity. And here's the part you don't want to miss. It's all free. Download the free iHeartRadio app and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
Employee onboarding?
Automated.
Customer support?
Automated.
What if you could automate all your company's routine operation tasks and do it easily? Lead management.
Automated.
With Zapier, you can. Zapier is the leader in no-code automation. Connect over 5,000 apps, automate almost any workflow, and streamline your team's performance without hiring a developer and with no coding required. That's right. Zapier's templates make it simple for you to automate anything in minutes, no matter your level of expertise. Zapier eliminates routine tasks and frees your employees to focus on the bigger picture. And with Zapier's advanced security features and annual SOC 2 audits, your data is safe and secure. See why thousands of companies, including Slack, Salesforce, and HubSpot, trust Zapier to automate their businesses. Even complex tasks?
Automated with Zapier.
Try Zapier for free today at zapier.com/radio. That's zapier.com/radio. Zapier.com/radio.
John Mellencamp returns to the road, and iHeartRadio is getting you there. We'll fly you and a guest to the tour date of your choice and set you up with VIP tickets to the show. Plus, slap a backstage pass on your jean jacket so you can meet John. And you'll walk away with a sheet of handwritten lyrics to one of his legendary tunes. Prize provided by AEG. Enter for your chance to win now at iHeartRadio.com/John Mellencamp. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media posts we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff to get to out there and a lot of comments coming in. Been popping some of them up on screen, but we'll keep getting to them here as best we can, including some of the commenters there. Eric McNabb, RJ, let's go past mine there. James Radcliffe, Maria Coleman, Kathy Codry. Who else we got there? EFR. I know there were more up here further. A lot of comments today. Ed Clore, Louis Pinato. Who else do we have here? Well, there's a lot of comments. Sean Gardner and Graham a little bit earlier and something like that. Or we did have, I can't see that one anymore. But anyway, you can always see them for yourself if you really want to here. Ricardo Avelis a little bit earlier. And, not Ion Grimm. Ida Beza Gardner, but Ion Grimm did drop the like there, as did Flaco Jimenez, James Holmes, Steve Ivy, Robbie Flores, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes. Do appreciate that. We do, of course, have that phone line open right now if you want to chime in that way as well. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And okay, we got a different kind of comments coming in here about asking me to comment on things that don't talk about on the radio here. I mean, yeah, we talk about local things as much as possible, except for, of course, Fridays when we loosen the rules a little bit, but we still want to keep it a productive discussion here. One of the comments coming in here, and it's an interesting point to be made, I guess, specifically, and we, of course, do take all the calls on the line, but we might dispense with certain topics here. But the comment from Eric McDowell on the idea that KFOX is a right-wing propaganda outlet that has no journalistic integrity. This woman is a con artist with no shame, referring to our guests there. If there's something that'll get me more bristly than not, it's directly insulting guests on the program here. And I do mean that in all senses, because we bring them on to hear what they have to say, particularly even the local journalistic work here. I guess it's really put a pin in part of the issue I've had with this kind of set of comments coming in about, well, this is something, or this is giving a label to something, as opposed to addressing the subject material into it. That's what's really got me. As much as a lot of your comments there are coming in about, well, what's the evidence? What's the purpose behind it? It seems that you're very clearly a supporter of the phrase, that which is presented without evidence can also be dismissed without it. And so in this case, yeah, there are definitely some concerns I have from media conglomerization, and I, yes, realize the intense irony that comes from me being a part of the company that I am in doing this. But, well, we take that tools and try to use them to do something here locally, talk about the important issues. But if you're going to specifically come after a guest, and not even just a temporary one, but when we have one regularly, someone who I particularly value the reporting on, going to need to be more specific, because calling her a con artist for talking about important local issues, that just ain't going to fly on its face. So if you got something specific to say, or maybe something about the actual stories we're talking about, you might find that a slightly more useful comment than just labeling something, and therefore we don't have to worry about it, because it kind of sounds like the issues being avoided more than just about anything else. Anyway, getting back to the phone lines now, we do have Frankie and Massey on the line here with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. Is it too early to start talking about any comments relative to the midterm elections? Is it too early yet?
I mean, we're already in our election coverage. I haven't played the music today because we didn't have an explicitly election story just yet. But no, we're less than just over a month away from election day, like a month and 3 days or 2 days, give or take, technically. So no, we're definitely there.
Okay, good. Well, a horrible situation happened today. Your senator, Don Cancun Crunch, showed up at the Farm and Ranch Museum in Las Cruces. Now they're going to have to fumigate the place to support this horrible, horrible woman who's our representative in the 2nd Congressional District here in our great state land of enchantment. Which is not, she is nothing but a total Donnie Dotard supporter and everything else negative. And this guy has the audacity, and there's another word I want to use, but I can't because there's FCC stuff.
Appreciate
Tell
that.
you something. This moron shows up to support her. This should be the death knell, political death knell for her. That's what I want to say on that thing. Number 2, and this is really great news. The one of the serious big Court of Appeals people shut down the most recent thing for the Donnie Dotard to go again and delay this whole business with this top secret stuff. Now, I told all you people out there, when I was in the military, I had access to classified information. That was sacrosanct. And then when I had a position in the federal government, a big agency in the federal government, this was also sacrosanct. I don't know how in the world that any of you out there can continue to go out and support this moron who takes home top secret information. I don't get that. That's my point, my opening point.
Okay, I mean, again, I'd still support fully looking into that situation. Unfortunately, with this circumstances, given that's top secret information, I doubt we'll ever have a truly satisfactory answer onto it. But I mean, given the seriousness of it, I mean, yes, it is the undeniable right of a sitting president to be able to declassify information, but also that cannot be considered just as, well, I mean, yeah, they can do whatever they want and there are no repercussions. I mean, sure, they have the right to. But does that mean that all secrets, including like nuclear launch codes, I know it's an extreme example, but that would fall in the order of magnitude of secrets. So there are reasonableness that all of us would expect from it, is the point I'm trying to make with it here, which is why I'd like to know the results of an investigation, but I'm sure we'll never get to it. To your first point there about the visit of Ted Cruz, yes, in support of Yvette Harrell for New Mexico's 2nd Congressional District. I guess I can't say I'm surprised. If anything, I've been kind of surprised that we haven't been hearing more about that race just in the local area. Sort of this coverage that we will be bringing you all as part of our election coverage will be that one, as well as, well, pretty much all the congressional races that we can cram into here. I mean, we're going to do the best we can. We're probably going to be looking at, once we get real into the swing of it, multiple interviews being played per day. So buckle up for that. But I mean, the congressional races, the city council races, commissioners, court, and just keep going on. Then, some of our competitive local state house races, we're going to cram in as much of that as we can anyway.
Well, again, I really appreciate you, Andrew, and the rest of the whole KTSM crowd, covering, here in our area of the great state of New Mexico, some of this, because it just seems that there's nobody else around here that's got a radio station that does that. Not to mention the fact, it seems I'm the only one from New Mexico that calls you, with the exception of one person. I don't even know where they were from. I don't understand why you can't get more people from New Mexico to call you. I don't understand that.
Well, I mean, maybe it has something to do with the name. I mean, I chose it as kind of a regional thing with Talk El Paso, but I mean, maybe there's to make it a regional thing is the point that we do want to get across. So helps to get the word out there. So appreciate it if you can. But in any case, thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right. Appreciate that. So tell you what, we're going to go ahead and take that next break. And coming out of this break, we got calls on the line. We'll get caught up with those and we'll get more on. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso police on the scene of an accident I-10 eastbound at the Executive Center Boulevard on-ramp. Stop-and-go traffic 10 eastbound between Vinton and Trans Mountain with 5-minute delays. Injury accident George Dieter northbound before Montwood. An earlier crash on eastbound Diana Drive at Kenworthy. You could take Dyer or Hondo Pass as your alternates there. And an earlier crash on East Lake Drive northeast of the 10 Gateway. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Thinking about an appliance purchase or having something installed? Like flooring, kitchen, or bath, you can count on Lowe's for credit options. See the store nearest you. Or go to Lowe's.com for details on the latest credit offers going on now.
Hi guys, it's Andrew with Northbrook Medical Clinic. Are you struggling with erectile dysfunction and sick of the pills? Well, we now have a major medical breakthrough you are going to want to hear about. The wave technology at Northbrook Medical uses gentle pressure waves to repair and open up blood vessels. There are 60 clinical studies, including from Cambridge, showing our technology treats the root cause problem of ED without any pills. If you're ready to put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and regain your love life, grab your phone and call us now. You'll qualify for the assessment, the exam, even the blood flow ultrasound, if you can believe it, totally free. And to the first 10 callers now, you'll get a gift that can produce powerful and rapid results in the bedroom. You're going to love that, trust me, guys. This is a $650 value free to callers now. 915-529-9000. That's 915-529-9000. Guys, put a stop to your erectile dysfunction and get your love life back. Call Northbrook Medical Clinic now to qualify. 915-529-9000.
Realtors abide by a code of ethics. This is Article 9 in action. Beth, a first-time homebuyer, knew nothing about the home buying process, except that she wanted to buy a home. But her realtor had the expertise to make sure Beth understood every document, even giving her copies to review with her lawyer so Beth could close on her first home with confidence. Complicated things explained in simple terms. The difference between an agent and a realtor is real. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors. That's who we are.
For Butch's Coffee. For EJ's Sandwich Shop. For Springfield Family Dental.
Every day, Staples helps every kind of small business create bold signs that sing. And now get $10 off custom signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Ends 12/31. Visit staplesconnect.com/thisisyoursign for details.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And we mentioned all those places because you can leave your comments there, and a lot of different comments coming in here, among other things, such as James Radcliffe saying, surprise, Frankie didn't say anything about Ronchetti. I'm saying that Ronchetti, or Roncetti? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Who was running against the forced lockdowns and small business enemy Michelle Lujan Grisham. Interesting perspective there. I think I can tell who you're more in favor of from that comment, but no, it didn't exactly come up there, but I mean, we'll be mentioning governors' races, but you mean if open invitation for them to come on the show if we can, and some more interesting labels going there, including land of dispensaries from Kathy Codry. Interesting point to be made there, and other show title potential is here. I thought about something involving Borderland in the title, but that it almost felt like, I mean, there's been like Borderland Blitz, Borderland Beat. I mean, it felt done to death, so that's why we went with it. But again, we do fully cover, well, as many of the issues that we can in the regions that we do have our coverage area. Anyway, a whole lot more comments going on there. Check them out if you want to on the various social media pages, and a lot more comments about commentary as well. In any case, let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Again, the full up at the moment, if we want to get on the line, that is the number to do so. So get that down. We are joined here by Raul in the Northeastern line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us. Hello. Okay, looks like we lost the call there. Apologies for that if we lost you. In any case, okay, continuing on with the line here. We do have Kevin on the east side here right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew. I'd like to have you clarify something. When you were talking about this person who had probably texted in or emailed in about a reporter not being honest and non-biased and everything, were they talking about Estefania Seyfert?
I do believe so. That's the point at which the actual comment came in. So I do believe that was the reference to who it was.
Well, I want to tell you something. I don't want to tell El Paso something. Estefania Seyfert is one of the most remarkable women that we have in El Paso. I know her personally. I taught in the school where she was my student. And I'm not talking out of school, so to speak, but she was fantastic. And this was at Loretto Academy. She's done a promotion of Loretto Academy on the TV. And I can vouch for her that this is an excellent person, not only a reporter, but an excellent person. And for someone to disparage her like that without even knowing her, this really gets my gall. And I'm very angry, I must say, at anyone who would make comments like that about someone that the caller or text or whatever it was doesn't know. It's obvious that this woman does not know Estefania Seyfert. You know Estefania Seyfert, so do I. We worked with her, and she is one of the most outstanding citizens of this city and this county that we have. God bless her. And I'm so riled up about this. If someone would say something like that, it frosts me. It really does. So thank you for letting me air my grievance on the telephone, and I'll try to calm down, okay?
All right, fair enough. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay.
Again, just putting it up for reference here. Yes, comment that came in on the Facebook page. Eric McNabb writing, K-Fox is a right-wing propaganda outlet that has no journalistic integrity. This woman is a con artist with no shame. And maybe the reason I'm not too worked about this is that being in this kind of local media industry, and I've been in a variety of different ways, these kind of comments come in every so often, and usually it say more about the person saying it than it does about who it's directed at. I mean, I've been called a whole lot of things, and at least one case was called, well, there's names I can't repeat. And so to do this kind of work, you kind of develop a thick skin, let's just say it that way, because you don't do this for very long. I mean, I do it because I love it, and I find it hopefully useful and important to someone out there. But that's why I tend to bristle, because, I mean, if someone's invited on the show, essentially they are a guest here, guest in the home of the show, so to speak. And so to say that as just a way to dismissing of it, again, if there's an issue you have with the particular story, something we're talking about, yeah, we absolutely take criticism on that, but just rote dismissal and saying, no, this person is wrong and will always be wrong, those kind of comments they're just not really going to fly here. And we tend to kind of move past them, except for the times when I feel it necessary to bring them up. I mean, we could, of course, leave all your comments. We're not necessarily popping up all the comments that show there, but that's when I did feel the need to mention. In any case, let's get back to those phone lines now. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Well, this is good timing, because I'm the person who actually made that comment.
Oh, all right.
KFOX is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting Group. Let me first preface all this. If you know a person personally, you're going to have rose-colored view of them, rainbows and sunshine and stuff. But that woman is a part of KFOX, which is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting Group. They're a right-wing propaganda outlet. I can look at their content and see for a fact they are purposely misinforming El Pasoans and making them more bigoted with their right-wing talking points and disinformation, which usually take the form of story selection, the omitting of details to promote a false narrative. KFOX, to its very core, its editorial decisions on both local journalism and also national issues is all compromised by its ownership by Sinclair Broadcasting Group, which forces them to promote a right-wing narrative. They own 190 local news stations that they poison these local communities with disinformation and propaganda. She may be a great journalist and have journalistic integrity, but her work and her not speaking out against this lack of journalistic integrity within her institution, her not pointing out how her reporting and investigating is being spun to purposely misinform El Pasoans, that's unforgivable on a scale that's hard to imagine.
Let me just say this. Again, I can speak from experience directly in this realm because having done investigative reports, been on air daily, and done all of it and anchored myself in other ways, that I often got many of these accusations, though it's humorous to me in this extent to point out the ones in the comments were also calling it a left-wing outlet, but that's not really central to your point here. But again, the idea that of trying to lay down all the ills of the organization on the lap of any individual with it, again, point to me somewhere in her individual reporting that you feel there has been bias or there's been issues, and we can certainly discuss it as we can with me. I mean, there's no such thing as a lack of bias. You can try to approach objective truth as much as you can, but everyone has their own life experiences that color the way they interpret the world. That's the nature of mentality of humanity. And to try and say that it's even possible to get rid of that is a futile exercise at its very base proposition. So, yes, bias exists. People are going to bring that, whether they recognize it or not. Recognizing it is an important step to trying to eliminate as much as possible, but it's always going to be there. So it's going to be those hot button things that get people worked up and maybe color how they deal with an issue. But beyond that, by saying that, Sinclair, I mean, media conglomeration is a simple fact of the modern world. And no, I'm not saying this because we are also a factor of that. But whenever I was particularly in the anchor chair or in the reporter seat or doing any of those kind of things, reporting on air, yeah, I'd often have people saying, well, you're just shilling for something. And all I was there on, and I get the very similar sense in professional discussions I've had with Estefania of wanting to get down to it, do the best reporting we can. And there isn't a whole lot of, someone in your ear telling you, no, you need to phrase it this way. That's kind of not a thing. So being said, well, they're only getting allowed to say what they are told to say is not how it works. And I can say that from personal experience, whether it comes to that show or any shows they do, or this one here. The topic selection, the way we do it, is an independent process. And again, it may vary between outlets, and that's part of why knowing your sources is very important. But I just find most of these accusations being laid, particularly at the local aspect of it, sure, it may have gripes with it nationally, but the local aspect of it falls a little bit flat and hollow with me, I got to say.
Well, I could say on KFOX, you could see the story selections, and there's a very overt propaganda and motive. It's to push conservative ideology from social issues to economic issues, and it's overt right-wing propaganda. There's no even pretense of journalistic integrity or some type of honest commitment to inform a community.
And that's just where we're going to have to disagree, because if you're calling, I think a specific thing you're probably referencing here without saying it is the idea of the segments that are required to run in all local outlets. Here's another thing that you probably need to know. That happens literally everywhere. Look it up, literally, YouTube or whatever your favorite platform is, and look up these supercuts of seemingly the same story running everywhere. And I mean, there end up being all these theories about, oh, it's control, but really what that's just showing is who owns what stations. I mean, sure, there may be like ABC affiliates, NBC, Fox affiliates in these cases, but really it's the ownership groups, because you've got a few big ones here. You've got such as a News Press and Gazette, Sinclair, Nexstar, a few of the big ones present here in town. And so, yeah, you're going to see in particularly some of the national stories, some similarities. They pull from the same sources, particularly for the national reporting. So to say that, well, that therefore invalidates anything done locally, every outlet's going to have your bias. Look between Fox News, to take it national, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, all of these. That's why there has been this kind of explosion of even further online only 24-hour news sources to try and further compete that. Really what we're seeing when it comes nationally is that it is less of a trying to put out the most information and gather the audience, so much as audience selection, both of the audience selecting who they want to listen to, and essentially national, again, get different outlets putting forth content that they feel will be catered toward an audience. So it is not a all one. I mean, as much as I love the muckraking tradition and wish we could do more of it here, it's not really what is in existence anymore. And the, unfortunately, model of support for it isn't really there. So we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, but just know, take a dim view to anyone saying without particular evidence that a guest we have on this show is a con artist. So I think we're going to leave that one there for today. Otherwise, thank you for the point in the call for what it's worth. We got to take that break now as well. So coming out of this break, we are going to be talking even further about the issues that affect us here in the borderland and taking your calls. So the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Selena Madrid with your CBS 4 News update. The investigation continues today after a migrant was apparently shot and killed by an agent at the Isleta Border Patrol station. The FBI in El Paso has confirmed the man was in Border Patrol custody when he was shot and killed yesterday afternoon. And Fox News is now reporting that man had been shot after he allegedly went for a Border Patrol agent's gun. Fox citing that information from a spokesperson for the National Border Patrol Council. That spokesperson also telling Fox the agents then reportedly used, quote, appropriate force at that point. CBS 4 on your side asked the FBI if they could confirm who fired a weapon. They told us this investigation is still ongoing. Of course, always remember, you can stay up to date with what's happening in our area and across the nation, all by signing up for our CBS 4 newsletter. It's easy and it's free, and we'll send it straight on over to your inbox. Just head to cbs4local.com/sign up to get started. I'm Selena Madrid with your daily news update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Police are on the scene of a crash, I-10 eastbound at the Executive Center Boulevard on-ramp. Got stop-and-go traffic still on the 10 eastbound in the Upper Valley between Vinton and Trans Mountain with 9-minute delays. Accident reported Gateway West at North Lee Trevino Drive. And roadwork has the left lane closed on eastbound Americas Avenue between Alameda and North Loop Drive. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 4 Warn Weather Center, I'm forecaster Vania Castillo. We are in for a beautiful Wednesday here in the borderland. We are still seeing some of the aftermath of the rain we saw overnight. We are going to continue to see that 50% chance for rain sticking around here in El Paso and Las Cruces. Now, we're also looking at some much cooler temperatures today because of all of that cloud coverage that we're going to be seeing. We are expecting a high of 75 degrees in El Paso, 73 in Las Cruces. Make sure you're packing those umbrellas today.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Recycle your old technology free during Staples Free Tech Take Back. Items like old modems, mice, and mobile phones, or cables, calculators, and camcorders. Staples Rewards members get $5 back in rewards. Exclusions apply. Limit 1 reward per month. Visit staples.com/recycling. Recycle at Staples.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
A construction site is a noisy place where things can be misinterpreted. We need to redo the drywall. It can sound a lot like
Rewire the hull? They're firing, Paul.
Wait, what did I do?
or even
Install a waterfall. Whose dumb idea was this?
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk. From the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building, Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, how about that drywall?
Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 5 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnationnow.com/join us. This report is sponsored by News Nation.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in there. Just name a few. We do have Kathy Codery, Eric McNabb, RJ, James Ratcliffe, Ion Grimm, and Flaco Jimenez, James Holmes, Sean Gardner, and a whole lot more. They're dropping those likes and racks. Simplest way I can put it now. Ion Grimm, Flaco Jimenez, James Holmes, Steve Ivy, Robbie Flores, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes. Thanks for we'll appreciate it, and showing your appreciation there helps with all those algorithmic things. So, and just a lot of commentary, particularly about local coverage here. That is not exactly what I thought we'd be getting into today, but at least it's local-ish. Anyway, come back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Jerry on the northwest side of town here with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for taking my call, and I just want to comment on your guest that you had this evening. I think that she is a good reporter. Now, she's not the best I've heard of or seen or listened to, but I've never heard her try to mislead anybody. And as far as a person that has made the comment to the otherwise, I believe he's never been anywhere. He's probably only been raised in El Paso and listened to CNN all his life. So that makes him biased. He only has one view of the world. So, and if he can't admit that to himself, then he's, not mentally fit to make comment on it.
Okay.
So you do a good job, Andrew, and you do allow a lot of people that have different views to come on, to include the person that has never had any experience otherwise. I mean, there are companies out there like CNN, their whole mission during 2018, 2019, and 2020 was to destroy Donald J. Trump. And they stated that from the command that was in charge, the man that was in charge, that was running it. You can look that up. You can Google that. So that's not a bias? Yeah, it is. And then Reuters also has a bias. They're looking at things from a different point of view. And so does the Associated Press. And every time that something comes over the wire, that news comes over the wire that local people see, they're reading a bias from another person's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So he needs to grow up and have a sense of there's two sides to every story, and that's called free speech. And it's our right to say it. So he has a bias against free speech, apparently. Well, thank you for taking my call.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. All right, you have a good one there. I mean, okay, I try not to get into like motivations of people. I try to take most statements at their face value and as if they are sincerely made. So that's, I guess, why I could take a kind of bristle at that kind of comment, questioning the integrity of people that I have not had reason to question myself here. Now, that's not to say that we do not allow discussion on things, because obviously there's one thing that we do, and we do it decently. I'd like to at least guess that we do. It's have discussion on issues. So it's not to say that we won't entertain or make it verboten, but if you're going to come for it, you better make sure you got the evidence for it as well, is all I'm saying. Let's go back to those phone lines again. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I think we're going to try this one more time here. We do have Raul in the Northeast on line with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. My understanding of the history of the press in this country is that the first press publications back in the Founding Fathers' day were essentially party organs. So the press, in a sense, you could make the case it's always been biased. There's nothing new about that. And what they do on top of that, whatever bias they have, they certainly are in the business of covering scandals, sex scandals, business scandals, lawsuits. The winners and the losers, who's on top and who isn't, and who's getting sued. There's nothing new about that. Again, I would have counseled Donald Trump, who demonizes the press, calls them the enemy of the people, that he should have listened to Don Henley's song, Dirty Laundry. It's all there and put together very nicely. Now, about what's going on, these poor folks in Florida, I found out that 60% of these Floridians whose homes were damaged or destroyed were uninsured. Now, there's three possible reasons they didn't have any coverage. One, they chose not to carry it. Two, they couldn't afford it. Three, it was unavailable. Now some P&C insurers have gone bankrupt. I got a call today from a family member who lives near Orlando, Florida, who told me that her home insurer went bankrupt. And during one of the past hurricanes, she and her family didn't have electricity for 10 days. I told her move. Other property and casualty insurers are no longer insuring certain areas of Florida. So who should pay to have these folks' homes repaired and replaced? Uncle Sam? My taxes? And should their homes be rebuilt where they were? I don't think so. I mean, if we're going to have to rebuild their homes or, seriously damaged homes, they need to move somewhere else, because this is going to happen again. This is the new normal. And why are people allowed to sell and buy properties in dangerous places? That's where government regulation comes in. And should homes and businesses and other structures be regulated? Supposedly some of these mobile homes just can't handle high winds. And like what we saw in California, where PG&E chose not to invest all the profits they make from their monopoly in putting those lines under the ground instead of in the up on telephone poles where they get blown down by the winds over there. It's crazy. Again, government regulation has a point there. And what liability should the fossil fuel plutocrats bear for causing global warming and climate weirding catastrophes? Why do they get away with it, huh? So, I mean, this country is challenged on so many fronts. It is unbelievable.
I mean, I'll agree with you with the idea that there are challenges, but a slightly less sliding scale of agreement on kind of a reverse order of your points there to the idea of what's going on in Florida. Yeah, there are challenges when it comes to housing. I guess the way that I tend to view it is what is most in favor of the average person here. So someone, I mean, frankly, if they don't have house insurance, flood insurance, having recently gone through the process myself, it probably means that they either have owned their home for a long time or managed to not have debt on it, however they came about that. Because usually if you still have a mortgage, they're going to require you to have that kind of thing unless there is a lack of availability, which is a total other situation that I don't have any experience with. But I think the best way to handle that is that, I mean, people should be allowed to live where they want to, but there's also a reasonableness of it. If it's, they want to live on the, side of a cliff in a mudslide zone, yeah, maybe there's some restrictions there. But really when it's coming to existing structures, because of course we're not talking about new stuff necessarily popping up overnight, but rather so much as it is that these structures have existed again for a while in some cases, that if it's turning out to be that it's going to be untenable or unavailable, I think that at a certain point the federal government should step in temporarily or really one time and say, we will purchase this property from you and relocate you and essentially condemn, demolish, remove, make it so that it cannot be, someone else just move into there and perpetuate the problem. I've seen that working on mostly on state levels. Would like to see more of a federal problem or program with that. And I know we have similar things that have been at issue here in Texas. Had a friend actually who he moved into a new house recently-ish, was pretty sure he had looked at the flood maps and didn't see any issues, but he was just allergic as hell to something in that house that could only be assumed to be maybe a result of some kind of flooding. And so you never know. So consumer protections, yes, absolutely important, because making sure that people, because you may say like, due diligence, buyer beware and that kind of thing, the level of resource that's available to the individual versus any corporation primarily interested, particularly major ones, major, multi-state or international ones, primarily interested in profits. There have been stories about how vehicle recalls have been handled and how the calculus has been made. You would think, as a rational human being, you think if there's a problem with the car that could cause accidents, let's recall all of them. And yet there are way too many stories about it being that, we didn't think it would cost that much in order to just settle them individually as opposed to do the full recall. So that's how we went about it, which is, to my mind, unconscionable. And yet that's how corporate law is. So challenges abound here. But when it comes specifically to the power lines, PG&E, I'm not going to give them necessarily a whole lot of credit and say, they're just victims in this case. I mean, there are laws in California about protection of trees and not cutting down things that I think exacerbated the situation. But also to assume that it's going to be the exact same thing of taking high-strung power lines and putting them underground, and it would be, operating exactly the same, is kind of not how that works. I'm by no means an electrician or a grid scientist. I'm sure there's a better name or phrase for that. But to say that 100% it could just be done if money was no object, maybe. And I'm still saying maybe, because the transmission also happens differently. It's not just the lines and the thickness of them, but literally the space around them. It's not just for convenience sake that we have power lines and even phone lines suspended. It's the interactions that come along with it. There are some fascinating studies that you can still look up about some of the first transatlantic cables that were laid, telegraph wires at that point in time, and how they had iron bands around them, and that was distorting the signal, because even though it wasn't touching the wire, so it's more complicated than that is the best I can say. So kind of a sliding scale of disagreement there, I will say. And some more comments going on there. Sean Gardner apparently agreeing with me, at least in part there. So I'm glad I have somewhat of a vague knowledge of these kind of things, and more comments along these lines. But let's get to at least one more call before we hit that next break. We do have Marco over in Central right with us right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
Well, I kind of want to go someplace completely different.
Okay.
And I want to talk to my fellow citizens.
Fair enough.
In El Paso and the region. And I want to talk about preparedness.
Okay.
Because of the times we live in. I hear all the news and everything going around, and I don't feel like a zombie walking around, but I feel like so much of what's happening in the world is out of our hands, and especially right now. I hear so stupid. She's a right winger because she deals with this company, and it's like, well, what's the right point of view then? The right point of view is the left point of view. Is that what you're saying? What's it really matter when the threat of nuclear war and global annihilation, just in the first volley, let me make this clear for everybody listening, you would lose 100 million people. Russia could wipe out Britain if it wanted to right now with a Poseidon missile. Underneath the ocean, the tsunami would be about 1,000 feet tall. It would go across all of Europe. It would be what a term called mega death. So much destruction, it boggles the mind. And the things that we talk about in reality are so superficial because the things that drive it are superficial. The money is like, okay, inflation's here and this is what's going on and gas is here. And yet society moves on, right? Society moves on because people don't realize how close they are to destruction. It's almost like Men in Black, People go on with their daily lives and they have no idea how close it is that the world's about to be destroyed. So those things become interesting to me. And I start to worry that we've become, in some ways, detached from reality of what's happening here. And we're consumed by all these imageries of nuclear bombs, aliens. It's so fantastic, the things that we've seen on screen in video games, that now when they talk about, hey, a small-scale nuclear war wouldn't be too bad. And it's like, no, they have bombs now that could destroy an entire state. And so that's what I want people to think about, preparedness. What would you do if things really went south and all of a sudden they started lobbing nuclear missiles? I don't think El Paso would be directly hit because of waters and the peace that Russia has with Mexico. But again, I'm going to make this statement here. People may disagree with me. I don't think Putin's the bad guy here. And we better start opening our eyes to see who the aggressor is here. Blowing up pipelines and changing the way things work in those regions because we don't like the politics of the dude that's telling us that we're on the wrong path, that might make us the baddies. Just food for thought.
Fair enough.
Thanks,
here.
Andrew.
No, sure thing. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. Let me just.
You're welcome, brother.
Absolutely. Let me just say this. I mean, you're, of course, welcome to your perspective on Putin. I'm going to disagree with you in it because whatever cloak of righteousness he may put himself in, and he definitely has, embracing of course, the Orthodox Church in Russia and things like that, he has definitely made a lot of efforts in order to legitimize his position and to make it rhetorically unassailable. And I do not buy it. Just plain and simple. A guy that grew up in the communist system and was a colonel within it does not just say, oh, you know what, I'll just leave all that behind. Sure, he may be more of a czarist than anything, but the point is that he would want himself to be the czar. And so he understands instruments of power probably better than most world leaders, I would say, do, because he has his hands on a lot more controls of them. So if you don't think Putin's a bad guy, fine. We're going to disagree about that because, again, I still do not trust Vladimir Putin as far as I could throw him, and I'm sure I'd never even lay a finger on him if I tried. Point is that, yes, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline you're referring to there, that's fishy in a variety of ways, and yet was being used as a foreign influence / blackmail tool by Russian, state agencies and companies as well. So I'm not going to call that innocent as, it's just this innocent little pipeline. No. And the idea of people, I know RJ said it tongue in cheek, but the idea of, it has been positive. The idea of a small scale nuclear war could really do a lot for global warming, which is insane at any level you look at it. Because even if someone's saying it wouldn't be that bad, all that means is that they have an idea about how they will make it not affect them, either by having resources. If you really want to go really down a rabbit hole, and this is not conspiracy theory, I've seen similar things myself, of what New Zealand has had to do in passing laws to prevent foreign land ownership because the amount of mega rich folks buying to do their ultimate doomsday bunker there. Like, this has been reported on multiple times over the years. So I think there are some of those with the reins of power that think that, well, we'll just do what we think needs to be done and make sure we suffer no consequences from it. Yes, there's definitely a cadre, probably a large one, that is in that realm. But to say that, therefore Putin's right, I'm just not going to follow you down the whole Putin line here. But in general, on the idea of preparedness, being able to weather a storm, literally and metaphorically, I think there's been increasing amount of talk about what it takes to make sure. I know people who have had at various points in their lives like two cans of green beans on the shelf and eat out for every other meal, never actually touch the green beans. Like, I just cannot understand living that way personally. Maybe it's the Boy Scout in me. Be prepared, taken as not just a Boy Scout motto, but a life motto. But I take that very seriously. So would encourage people, and we've been mentioning for a while now, batten down the hatches, make sure you've got what you need so you can have what you want on hand, because things are probably going to get weirder before they get better. And I still stand by that statement. So we got to take that next break now. Coming out of this break, tell you what coming up for you on the show, and wrap up. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso freeways are crash-free right now. A little slow in the 10 eastbound from Trans Mountain to 54 Patriot with 5-minute delays. I-10 eastbound at Mesa, there's a truck block of the right shoulder. Lee Trevino northbound at Vista del Sol, an injury accident. A crash reported Zaragoza at eastbound Montwood, and downtown an injury accident on Dallas Street, north of the 10 Gateway at Arizona Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's. Try Wendy's new Homestyle French Toast Sticks today. Wendy's new Homestyle French Toast Sticks are so good, some are saying they're better than their mom's French toast. Perfectly crispy on the outside, perfectly fluffy on the inside, perfectly perfect in every way. Try Wendy's new Homestyle French Toast Sticks today and see if they're better than your mom's.
Have you thought about getting dental implants? Has someone told you that dental implants cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 per tooth? Please do not pay that much money. Instead, go to 1995implants.com, the El Paso dental office where beautiful, top-quality, long-lasting dental implants are as low as $1,995 per tooth, including the implant, abutment, and crown. Plus, we offer a free consultation with the dentist, free standard x-rays, and convenient financing plans to fit your budget. At 1995implants.com, dental implants are very affordable. So, get rid of your cracked teeth, missing teeth, and loose, old, wobbly dentures and get the amazing new smile that you've been wanting. 1995implants.com is conveniently located right here in El Paso. For more information, please see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
Realtors abide by a code of ethics. This is Article 9 in action. Beth, a first-time homebuyer, knew nothing about the home buying process, except that she wanted to buy a home. But her realtor had the expertise to make sure Beth understood every document, even giving her copies to review with her lawyer so Beth could close on her first home with confidence. Complicated things explained in simple terms. The difference between an agent and a realtor is real. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors. That's who we are.
For Butch's Coffee. For EJ's Sandwich Shop. For Springfield Family Dental.
Every day, Staples helps every kind of small business create bold signs that sing. And now get $10 off custom signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Ends 12/31. Visit staplesconnect.com/thisisyoursign for details.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Gotten through a lot today, more than I thought. And for anyone wondering, yes, Estefania was listening as well. Get some interesting text there. But we'll check back on all these issues and talk more about the elections coming up, starting some of our candidate interviews coming up, because, of course, we launched our coverage, and we got a lot more in the works for you. And, of course, Friday's right around the corner already. So stay tuned for all that and more. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m., as we do every Monday through Friday. So in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso freeways are crash-free right now. A little slow in the 10 eastbound from Trans Mountain to 54 Patriot with 5-minute delays. I-10 eastbound at Mesa, there's a truck block of the right shoulder. Lee Trevino northbound at Vista del Sol, an injury accident. A crash reported Zaragoza at eastbound Montwood. And downtown, an injury accident on Dallas Street, north of the 10 Gateway at Arizona Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Yee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
ABC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden says the federal government will remain in Florida until the state has fully recovered.
It's going to take a lot of time, not weeks or months. It's going to take years for everything to get squared away.
Speaking in Fort Myers, Biden said the preparation done before the storm hit the Sunshine State was vital to saving lives. The president also commended Ron DeSantis on a job well done handling the storm's aftermath. 4 astronauts blasted off on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Kennedy Space Center in Florida today. The SpaceX NASA Crew 5 mission will arrive at the International Space Station on Thursday. The launch is the first involving a Native American woman. A top Senate Democrat is outlining priorities for the $80 billion in IRS funding provided through the Inflation Reduction Act. Oregon lawmaker Ron Wyden emphasized in a letter to the Treasury Secretary and IRS Commissioner that the funds would not be used to increase the audit rate relative to historical levels for those making less than $400,000. The NYPD insists extra police are on patrol following a slew of unrelated crimes in the Times Square area. The reassurance comes following the most recent incident on Tuesday night when a man was stabbed in the leg in the Times Square subway station. Alex Jones says he'll rest his case without testifying or putting up